Welcome to the Soul Touched by Dogs podcast, the show for dog lovers who see dogs not as toys or tools, but wise souls worth our respect and care. I'm Anke Herman, and I'm your host. I talk to awesome humans, people who do great work for dogs and their people. So come and join us for today's conversation. Hello and welcome, Drayton. I'm excited to have you here.
Thanks. I'm excited to be here. I appreciate it.
Well, before we get started, let people know where in this lovely world are you based and what's your business for dogs?
You got it. I'm in Red Bank, New Jersey, which is about 50 miles from New York City and 50 miles from Philadelphia. So I'm kind of like right in the middle of New Jersey. And I've been training and working with dogs for about 24 years. Started in 2000 as a dog walker in New York City. Went to the Academy for Dog Trainers, got certified, took the fabulous course by Dr. Susan Friedman, Living and Learning with Animals. I work with roughly 400 dogs a year. Typically, I have anywhere from 3 to 4 puppy classes a week. And, I do private sessions. Anything people need help with, it doesn't really matter as long as they want to do it in a positive, force-free, humane way. That's how I train. Then I'd be happy to work with them. I don't have any dogs of my own at the moment, but I've had 3 dogs in my lifetime, all pit bulls. And back in 2009, I was the first person to put out a documentary about pit bulls called The Pit Bull Hoax, which you can find on YouTube. And I've also been in the movie Beyond the Myth, which was another great movie about breed-specific legislation and the effects of that. And I have a very active YouTube channel where I put out videos on a regular basis about positive reward-based training.
I love that. I love that. So now you've got me with the pitties, right? So it's such a discussion all the time, So what pulled you towards that breed?
Well, when I first got a dog, I didn't know anything. This was back in, I think it was like, 98. And, I just started to notice there were people who I had known in my life who were afraid of my dog, and I couldn't understand why. So as time went on, I just found more and more information about, the culture of hating these dogs and banning them. And I said, wow, there's really something that has to be done. And the best way to do that is to have some sort of media presentation. At the time, my ex-wife was a professional trainer and she had access to some pretty legendary people in the training and behavior world. So I contacted them and said, hey, I'm making this documentary and I'd like to know if you'd like to speak about pit bulls and behavior. So there had been, a decent amount of people advocating for pit bulls at that point. This is around 2005, 2007. But nobody had really come into the advocacy for pit bulls with behavior and discussing behavior. I then discovered I discovered Karen DeLees, who's an author. She wrote a fabulous book called The Pitbull Placebo, and she basically studied dog bite incidences for about 150 years and found that there was a criteria that always repeats in part or total. And that criteria is dogs kept for guarding or protecting. They're not family members. Multiple dogs, dogs not spayed or neutered, children left alone with dogs, domestic violence, dogs running free, and dogs chained or housed all the time. And if you look at any of the fatal or lethal dog bite incidents, no matter where they happen in the world, some or all of that criteria is present. There's never been a dog who's been well trained, well cared for in a loving family that's killed anybody or, hurt someone from biting them. And, at the end of the day, that's kind of what sparked my interest in making the Pitbull hoax and just went on from there. I inspired another gentleman to make a film called Guilty Till Proven Innocent. And I was in the film Beyond the Myth, which ended up coming on Netflix back in the day. So, there's been a lot of movement towards helping pit bulls and pit bull type dogs. But unfortunately, that stigma and that hate and that prejudice seems to persist.
It certainly does, So I'm wondering, do you have some theory around that, or like you keep hearing this, but the doors really lock and whatever, So it's like, and this pit bull, attacked their owner in the bedroom, or what, like what. There's these stories, and you never know whether they're true anyway. But do you have a theory of why that kind of persists like that?
There's a couple of things we can definitely look at as truisms. Number one, jaws don't lock. That's been proven, through anatomical research by veterinarians that just what happens is you know, if it is an actual pit bull dog, they do have very strong jaws, and they, you know, they were bred to grab cattle and hold them, right? They're catch dogs. Initially, pit bulls were created to do farm work and hunting. The fighting came later, and my theory on that is people were bored back in the 1600s, right? My joke is if we had video games back then, maybe dog fighting would have never happened. But, you know, people are cruel and they don't really think about things in a humane way all the time. They just have their own agenda. As far as why the hate and the prejudice continues, there's always going to be people who hate dogs and don't understand them. And a lot of it is just knee-jerk panic policy. When you look at breed-specific legislation in America, every place that it's been implemented, dog bites haven't decreased. And obviously, if you have education over legislation, you can have your community much safer. The problem is they would rather just ban dogs, kill a bunch of innocent dogs who've never done anything wrong. They just look a certain way. So my attitude towards it is the more you educate, then you don't have to legislate. And breed-specific legislation doesn't solve anything anyway, right? It's the over-inclusive, under-inclusive theory, right? You're going to include a lot of dogs in that ban who will never bite anyone. And you're going to get a lot of dogs who don't look like pit bulls who may be in danger of biting someone, and they're not going to be included because they're a lab or they're a shepherd. So, you know, it always boils down to this: behavior is in the environment and humans are the variable. So if the human is doing things correctly and they're responsible, there's a really great chance that the dog's never going to get into any serious trouble. And, you know, you mentioned, you know, a dog guardian being bitten by their own dog, you know, or mauled. Well, all I can say is, number one, what have you been doing with that dog? Like, how are you treating this dog? And then number two, are you working with anybody that considers themselves a professional, and what are they telling you to do? So sure, you know, dogs can bite because they have teeth, right? That's why they bite. And fear's rooted and aggression is rooted in fear. Fear is the underlying cause for aggression. So, you know, when you look at it logically and you remove the emotion, right, and you have some empathy, dogs have the cognition of 3-year-old kids for life by the time they're about 2. So they're not up to no good. They're doing things that dogs do, right? And if a dog is in a really bad situation, they may end up doing something really bad.
Yeah, I mean, the breed specific legislation just reminds me that just recently there was something going on in the UK as well. So it's not even just the States. So
Yep.
it happens
Yep.
everywhere. And there's, you know, people fighting for their dogs, right? Because they say,
Sure.
well, if you have this dog is the biggest fluff ball, you know, or cuddle bug, but just he looks like this, so he's gonna be. So it's
Well,
incredible.
the other thing, and I'm going to be making some media about this because, you know, October is Pitbull Awareness Month here in America. I'm sure it extends around the world, but, you know, one of the things that I'm going to start reminding people is that the media likes to create monsters, because when the media creates a monster, they make money. And,
Mm.
you know, you should never trust the media about anything they say, because they lie, because they don't have any agenda for the truth. They have an agenda to make money and to create division, because when they create division, they make money, right? And that's how the media works. You know, in America, we have a publication called Sports Illustrated, and back in the 80s, they put a pit bull on the cover of an issue and said, beware of this dog. But then fast forward to the Michael Vick incident, now they have the dog on the cover and they're saying these are wonderful dogs. It's about the people. So it took, you know, almost 20 years for them to come around. But the reason why they came around isn't because all of a sudden the media loves dogs. No, they came around because the zeitgeist, right? The whole population was like, hey, don't blame these dogs at the Michael Vick kennel. It's the people. But, you know, that only lasted about 5 years, and then it all went back to, you know, oh, they're dangerous dogs. So
Yeah.
that's my message to the general public: is do not trust the media about whatever they say, whether they say it about dogs, they say it about people, whatever they're telling you, there's an agenda.
Yep, sound advice that one. So now
Well,
I'm curious. Actually, the thing that pops to mind is that since I've started this show and this whole project and really looking into, you know, like groups and dog professionals, there's a shit fight going on, right? So between the, you know, balanced and tough dogs need a tough hand, and
people who say, well, no, that's crap, right? So do you find you get a lot of pushback, especially, you know, coming at you with like, oh, well, pit bulls, you can't, you know, you can't train pit bulls
Sure.
with
Well,
treats.
here's the thing. I was also coming into dog culture with advocating for pit bulls and advocating for positive reward-based training without the use of fear and pain. I was doing it concurrently. So I was one of the first people who was really screaming from my lungs saying, hey, stop hurting dogs, stop causing them fear and pain, stop shocking them, stop choking them. Look at history. Humans and dogs have been working alongside each other since 20,000 years before agriculture. So before humans figured out, hey, let's put seeds in the ground, we had dogs helping us, right? We had dogs working with us. Before molded metal and before electricity, dogs were a partner in our evolution. So why is it now we need to choke them and shock them and blame them? Dogs are innocent. I don't want to get into the weeds, but there's an area of mammal brains called the dorsal lateral prefrontal cortex. And this job that the dorsal lateral prefrontal cortex does is it does the right-wrong assessment. Dogs don't really know right from wrong. They know what's reinforcing, what's not reinforcing. Okay. Again, as I said earlier, they have the cognition of 3-year-old kids for life. So they're not doing things with a moral imperative. And if anybody believes that, then they are believing a falsehood. Okay. Do I get pushback? Not really. I mean, I have, but you know, most people don't really mess with me. Maybe it's just my vibe. They're like, and I don't really care. And, you know, I will tell people, well, you know, at the end of the day, you know, thank you for letting me know that you want to cause dogs fear and pain. Thank you for telling me that. Now I know who you are. Me, I don't need to. The other thing is when you look at actual legitimate animal trainers who train animals that will kill you, they don't use fear and pain. Some, you know, some positive trainers have a saying, if you wouldn't train a lion that way, don't train a dog that way, right? if you wouldn't do it to a 3-year-old, don't do it to a dog, okay? Fear is the underlying cause for aggression. So why do you want to create fear, which could create aggression? Secondly, if you have a dog who already has a predisposition to being afraid, whether it's from their genetics. So if you have a guard dog breed like a Rottweiler, a Chow Chow, a German Shepherd, a Doberman, and let's say they have a little bit more fear in there, why do you want to increase it, right? You don't want to do that. So I work with people and their dogs. And in order for me to sleep well at night, I have to go into situations, no matter where the people are, and teaching them how to be safe behaviorally and how to be safe just in a general management, pragmatic, everyday life with your dog. Let's be safe. Because then I know the dog is going to stay sound, right? Yeah. Now, a lot of these trainers who, you know, use shock and choke and they blame the dog, my question to them would be, why do you need to do it if you can get it done without it? Because I can train dogs without making them afraid. Right? Because all the legitimate behavior people will agree, sure, you can change behavior with shock and choke. We're not saying you can't change behavior, but what's left in its place? What's left in its place is an overly generalized fear. And again, I don't even know if half these pain trainers understand this, but that's the reason why it, quote, works, because the dog has a generalized fear to this chain. The dog has a generalized fear to this beep, because the beep predicts here comes the shock, right? See, I understand operant and classical conditioning inside and out. I am not confused about the science of animal behavior or behavior analysis. I get it thoroughly. I wonder if they do, because I think that they're just choking and shocking dogs, hoping the dog stops doing something so the client will be happy. But it's been proven, you can look at a lot of studies, behavior stays in place and is much more solid when there is positive reinforcement and kind consequences. I'm not saying I don't give dogs a consequence to teach them. It's just kind. So what I always tell my clients is, if you get a parking ticket, you're bummed out. But what if the consequence was they popped all of your tires? What if you got there and your tires were, that's pain. That's misery. Now you gotta go get your car retreaded, right? You gotta get new tires. So I will bum dogs out. I will disappoint a dog, but I won't cause them fear and pain.
Yeah, I mean, that makes so much sense. And it's that that part of like, it's just like humans, you know, like you can intimidate anybody into submission, but that pent up fear will come out somewhere else.
Right.
You
Well, you
know?
can't intimidate everybody, and dogs are the same way. There's some dogs who are like, you know what? Screw this. I'm biting you, and I'm biting the next person. So, you know what those trainers, those pain trainers do? They say, "Oh, there's something wrong with that dog," and they don't go back. They quit. They quit. Or if the client has been choking their dog for a month, and all of a sudden it bites their kid, and they call the trainer. You know what the trainer does? Oh, I'm not coming back. Oh, I can't work.
That dog isn't trainable, so the dog gets killed basically.
Because I've had clients who've been in those positions, and then they contact me, and I'm like, well, that tells you about the character of that person. If I have a client call me back 6 months later and say, hey, the dog's doing X, Y, Z, I'm like, okay, great. Let's get in there. Let's retool the plan. Give me some history, what's been going on, and let's give you some help. Right. But I don't have clients calling me, telling me, hey, you told me to do this, and now my dog is worse.
Yeah, yeah, that makes sense.
I
mean, that's the thing that winds me up when these like TV personalities, and there's a Spanish mini-me version of of a famous one, and it's that you can see, well, they just kind of stun the dog, shock the dog in the moment, and I'm like, I don't even want to know what happens when he's gone and the person's back alone with their dog, and I think it makes it worse.
You're absolutely right. First of all, you wouldn't want to take parenting advice from reality shows, and you wouldn't want to take dog training advice from TV shows.
But people do. That's the thing.
I know. Look, I went to Animal Planet twice to get a show. Okay. And I talked to no fewer than 9 different producers over the course of 10 years to get a show. Here's what I'll tell you about people in entertainment. They don't care about dogs. Yeah. They don't give one crap about dogs, the welfare of dogs. They don't care about educating the general public. All the people in entertainment care about is, will I make money? That's all they care about. Because if they actually cared about dogs, they would put out a number of shows that could really help people.
Yeah, okay. For sure.
And the first woman I met with at Animal Planet, she was dead in the eyes. Dead in the eyes, right? Usually when I talk to people about dogs, you get some sort of emotion, joy, sadness, interest, something. She was just blank. The next time I went up to Animal Planet, I went with Jon Stewart. Yes, that Jon Stewart, because I worked with him and his family for about 8 months. And he brought me in, and they still didn't give me a show. But they had a little changeover in the, management at Animal Planet. But the bottom line is, if they really wanted to do it, right, they could, but they don't care, right? And they just don't. That's why they keep putting on training shows, and I use that word loosely, but they keep putting shows out where people are causing dogs fear and pain, because they don't care at all. And nobody can convince me they do care.
Well, I couldn't agree more. So
actions speak louder than words.
I do agree. So do you work with people locally, or can people get hold of you online, or what's the easiest way to get in touch?
Yeah, I mean, I work with people here in New Jersey, but I've done a fair number of remote consults. I actually did a remote consult with a woman in Russia about 9 years ago, and it was very successful. But yeah, people can get a hold of me through moderndogtraining.com. And if they want to do a remote consult, we can do that.
Awesome. So, but that doesn't, like, you don't have to have a pit bull. Like, as you said in the beginning, it doesn't really matter whatever issue.
I work with every kind of dog that people have. I love all dogs, and I want to help people no matter what kind of dog they have.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much.
Welcome. Can I plug my new book? My new book?
Oh, hell yes, please.
All right. So I just put out a book. It's called The Puppy Parent's Handbook. It's really short. You could probably read it in an hour. It's got everything you need to help raise your puppy, from house training to general training to leash walking to counter conditioning to help your puppy with fears or stress or frustration. So, it's moderately priced. You can get it online wherever they sell books. It's available all around the world. You can get it on Amazon. You can get it on Kindle. You can go to Ingram Spark, and that will help you if you need to get the book from overseas. So check it out. It's good stuff.
Awesome. We're going to definitely, do a big plug in the show notes and in the newsletter. So for sure, it goes on the bookshelf. So definitely. Because I guess, when somebody is lucky enough, because most of mine have been puppies. Yeah, they're all being kind of puppies when they came. But
Yeah.
it's kind of the time. If you get the chance to have a dog as a puppy, I think it's that beautiful opportunity to get in some, some education early.
Yeah, you put your imprint on the dog, which is great. But one of the things I talk about in the book right away is should you even get a puppy? Because there's a lot of legwork, right? There's a lot of little extra work that you have to do when you get a dog who's 8 weeks. There's 2 fear periods during the critical development period. Some puppies are really mouthy. Some puppies have some separation issues. There's the legwork for house training. But if you're willing to do the work, it's a great experience. And, I encourage people to get a puppy. One of the things that is kind of, I don't know, I don't want to say controversial, but some people feel like, you should never buy a dog. And my attitude is, doesn't matter where the dog comes from, as long as the people are committed and they love the dog, they do the work, they stand by the dog, they're helping the dog every day. There's plenty of dogs who cost thousands of dollars and they wind up in a shelter. And there's plenty of dogs who were found on the street and they find their way into a great home. So it always goes back to the people. Are the people doing what they need to do? Are they getting the right information? Is that information based in humane training? And if that's the case, then every dog is a rescue dog.
Oh, I love that. I love that so much. Thank you so much. This was
You're welcome.
absolutely delightful. And let's
Let's
provide
do it again
decent
sometime.
homes for puppies.
Okay, sounds great. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for listening. If you enjoyed the episode, don't forget to subscribe and leave a review so other dog lovers can find the show. If you haven't already, head over to soultouchedbydogs.com and sign up for weekly doggy cuteness, tips, recommendations, and personal stories to warm your dog-loving heart. And if you know a awesome human you think I should interview, I'd love an introduction. Email me at Anke, that's ANKE, @soultouchedbydogs.com.